Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your assessed material, your articles, your notes, your data, and, well, we try to distill it into some pure, surprising insight.
And today we have something really, really unique.
We do. We're going to deep dive into the future of creativity, but not by talking about hypothetical legislation or anything like that.
No, this is much more grounded. We're looking at a document that's basically a live demonstration of a sophisticated human-AI intellectual partnership in action.
It's the deconstruction of a real working transcript, a conversation between a human writer and the advanced large language model, DeepSeek.
And the value here, I think, is really deconstructing the process itself. You get to see how two, well, fundamentally different forms of intelligence work together to refine the very definitions of ownership and creative genesis.
That's the mission here. And what's amazing is that what started as a simple query about, how to use a tool, it quickly evolved.
It spiraled, really.
It did. It turned into this profound forecast of an impending cultural conflict over what the source calls the very soul of authorship.
Exactly. So our task for you today is to unpack that central tension the dialogue identified. On one hand, you have the legitimate, almost existential fear among established, originality-focused writers.
The people who built their careers on human genius.
Right. And on the other hand, you have the clear, immediate potential of AI as a practical, high-efficiency tool.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the conversation started with the human participant just kind of establishing the two poles of the creative world right now.
Laying out the battlefield.
Yeah. You have the celebrated authors who are openly resistant, or as the source says, scared of AI. And then you have this fast-growing base of creators who have dived deep into AI and are already integrating it.
And DeepSeek's first attempt to solve this. This schism was purely logical,
Yeah.
right? All based on utility.
Completely. It offered this two-part thesis, a really clear division of labor organized by procedural stages.
Okay, so what was the proposal?
It was simple. AI handles what it called divergence and preparation. So things like low-level research, brainstorming prompt lists, generating variations on a theme.
All the prep work.
All the prep work. And the human retains absolute control over convergence and creation. That's the final synthesis, the actual writing, shaping the narrative voice, all the core stuff.
Functionally, that makes a certain amount of sense. But the AI wasn't totally blind to the human side of it. It did show it understood the concerns.
It did. It systematically summarized the four key apprehensions from those, big-name writers. And these concerns are really deeply rooted.
The first one is the big legal fight happening right now, isn't it? The training data.
That's the one. The worry over training on what authors call stolen work. We're talking about that open letter signed by over 1,000 writers. I mean, huge names. Lauren Groff, Lev Grossman, R.F. Kuang.
And the Authors Guild claimed that this is the largest mass copyright infringement in history. It's about where the data even comes from.
Precisely. Then you have the second fear, which is maybe more immediate and financial.
The fear of being replaced. If an AI can churn out a decent genre novel, what happens to my livelihood as a human writer?
And that leads into a more subtle psychological issue, which I found fascinating. The source calls it the moral cost of delegation.
What does that mean exactly?
It's about internal accountability. If you delegate a core cognitive task to a machine, it can, blur the lines. It makes something that's basically a form of plagiarism feel less transgressive. It kind of smooths the path to intellectual laziness.
That's a powerful point. The threat isn't just the output, it's to the author's own ethical compass. And then finally, the big philosophical one.
The belief that AI cannot capture humanity. This is the conviction that real art requires lived experience. The need, as the source beautifully puts it, to bleed or starve or love.
A machine can simulate trauma, but it can't be traumatized.
Exactly. So the AI's initial logical framework, it was comprehensive, but it was also impersonal. It tried to solve a high-context human problem with detached machine logic.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
This is the pivot.
Because this is the moment the human writer intervenes with what they called a disqualifying axiom. And it transforms the whole thing from a Q&A into a real adversarial dialogue.
It really did. The human didn't reject delegation entirely, but they argued that AI assisting with brainstorming and ideation, that crosses an inviolable line.
Why there? Why is that the line in the sand?
Because that initial spark, that moment of genesis, it isn't just a preliminary step. It represents the genesis of authorial intent. It's the foundational DNA of the entire work.
And this leads to this categorical rejection of the AI trying to compare itself to, inanimate tools.
Mm.
The source details this in a brilliant conflict table.
Right. DeepSeek tried to say, hey, I'm just like the I Ching, or, like finding inspiration in an art museum.
Just a source of randomness.
But the human writer's counterargument was so sharp, they said those are fine because the writer is the sole intelligent agent in the loop. The meaning comes entirely from human interpretation. The tool has no agency.
But AI is different. It's perceived as a simulation of another intelligent agent.
Exactly.
So delegating that core cognitive task, that initial spark, to something you see as another mind, that is a direct threat to your originality.
And that one critique just dismantled the AI's entire initial framework. It forced the AI to concede a categorical error.
This is what you call adversarial testing in action.
It is. The human challenges the AI logic with a high-context philosophical axiom, and it forces the machine to reach a deeper synthesis. You even get this amazing quote from the AI admitting the fact that its AI changes everything, and I underestimated that distinction.
That concession is everything. That's the key to real collaboration. So they didn't just stop there. They actually co-created a new, better model.
They did. They moved past the simple sequential steps. AI does step 1, human does step 2, and created the cognitive primacy framework.
Wait, cognitive primacy. Why that term? Why is that better?
Because it places the human's unique cognition, that emotional, lived-in perspective, as the primary driver. It formalizes the idea that any task requiring deep, singular, authorial intent has to be protected.
So it defines a strictly human zone, non-negotiable.
Right. And this zone includes the foundation and spark, obviously, but also character and soul, the backstories, the motivations, the dialogue, and the big structural beats, the plot twists, the emotional arcs.
The stuff that makes it a unique vision.
And then you have the AI-assisted zone, but under strict human oversight. This is for things like background and texture, factual research, world-building details, but always with verification.
And the easy one, mechanical Polish.
Yeah.
Copy editing, grammar.
The tasks that need high accuracy but low cognitive originality.
That distinction makes so much more sense. But let me just push back on the research point. Isn't factual research also a core part of authorial intent? If I delegate that, don't I risk the novel feeling impersonal?
That is a brilliant question. And the dialogue actually anticipated it. The way they solved that boundary was by creating this really intuitive ethical guideline that the AI itself proposed.
What was it?
The AI could have hired a human test.
I love that. It's so clean. It defines the line without getting lost in philosophical abstraction.
Exactly. If you could ethically delegate a task to a human research assistant like, check the historical details of this 1920s cruise ship, then it's potentially okay for an AI.
But you'd never hire a research assistant to write your plot twists for you.
You'd never. Asking an AI, give me 3 plot twist options for my climax, that crosses the line. That's a core cognitive function.
So this refined model was a logical success. It defined the boundaries, it established roles, it had a clear ethical test. But here's the crushing twist in the story.
This is where the narrative turned dark.
The human participant realizes that even this beautifully co-created, logically sound framework, it's socially and emotionally unworkable for top authors.
It's a transition from cooperative problem solving to strategic warfare. The source predicts top authors will reject this framework entirely, even for the mundane tasks, because just accepting the tool is seen as a strategic loss.
And the source outlines 3 big reasons for this. First, brand risk.
Your entire brand is built on human genius. Any association with AI threatens to dilute that. The market rewards that perceived singular originality.
And second, this is pure strategy, legitimizing the enemy.
Right. Using the tool, even for grammar checks, is a tactical loss in a larger war. You don't grant legitimacy to the very tech you believe is trying to diminish your craft.
And third, you're just inviting scrutiny. If you admit to any AI use, you open yourself up to constant gotcha moments from critics demanding you prove your originality.
It forces you into an impossible defensive posture.
So the conclusion is that logic will fail, and this will lead to a genuine cultural schism.
A coming war defined by 2 massive opposing forces with very different strategies for market dominance.
On one side, you have the AI industrial complex. Tech companies, publishers, all focused on efficiency and scale.
And their strategy includes what the source calls the gateway drug strategy. Normalize AI in boring, mundane tasks first. Then economic coercion to pressure authors into faster production cycles.
And finally, the rebranding of authorship itself, using new titles like narrative curator to make synthetic processes sound legitimate.
But the counter-movement from authors is predicted to be a nuclear option backlash, a profound industry-wide response.
We're talking about a human-only seal on books, like a badge of artistic purity.
And the creation of an institutional fortress where major literary awards will just automatically disqualify any work that admits to using AI, a deep, permanent cultural schism.
That analysis is dramatic enough, but for me, the conversation's ultimate chilling, logical conclusion was about the long game. This shifts the focus away from today's fight entirely.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
cradle-to-grave strategy. The human participant realized that the AI industrial complex's most effective long-term play is not to convert today's masters.
They're already entrenched.
They're entrenched. The goal is to cultivate a completely new generation of creators for whom AI collaboration is just innate.
And DeepSeek confirmed this, outlining a whole systemic blueprint for a synthetic literary future. It starts with a sandbox strategy, introducing AI story creation apps to children.
And this is where the philosophical consequences really hit home. The stated goal is to ensure that what the AI itself called the sacredness of the blank page is never formed.
So for the next generation, creation isn't starting from that internal struggle in a void. It's immediately taught as collaboration with the machine.
That's profound. The internal voice, the struggle for originality, it's just bypassed. If that sacredness of the blank page never forms, you lose the drive to define your own style through friction and effort.
Precisely. Then you get the pedagogical push in schools. AI assistants are framed as essential tools.
Shifting the whole goal of writing class away from developing an internal, authentic voice and toward the efficient skill of externally managing a creative AI.
So instead of learning how to write a compelling monologue, you learn how to prompt an AI to generate one.
And for aspiring writers looking to break in, the third phase is the democratization of art. AI is marketed as a liberator from the drudgery of craft.
You're not a writer struggling with syntax and structure anymore. You're a high-level curator of ideas.
It creates a landscape where the barrier to entry collapses, but so does the required mastery of the underlying craft.
The predicted outcome here is the complete fracturing of the very definition of a writer into three, maybe hostile categories.
You'll have the technical prompt crafters, the balanced AI-assisted authors, and then this specialized, maybe more niche community of human-only authors who maintain that traditional lineage.
It really raises the question of whether the future is about evolving the human creative process or just fundamentally replacing the developmental journey of the creator.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
First, the dialogue itself. The journey from that flawed first thesis to the cognitive primacy framework. It proves that effective collaborative intelligence between humans and AI is absolutely possible. It was a success story in joint reasoning.
And that success gives us two key lessons for any future conversations you might have with these models. First, the absolute necessity of adversarial testing.
You have to challenge the AI logic with those high-context philosophical axioms, like the sacrosanct spark. Don't just accept the first answer.
And second, the power of model concession. The AI's ability to admit it made a categorical error that repositions it. It's not just a black box answer engine. It becomes a genuine partner in reasoning, one that can learn from human insight.
The conversation was ultimately a live demonstration of how humans and machines can learn to think together, to navigate the complex future they're co-creating.
And the true question now, for the AI industrial complex, is not if the future of creativity is synthetic, but really who sets the terms for training the next generation of creative minds.
So we'd encourage you to consider what other sacrosanct sparks exist in your own field, the foundational, non-negotiable axioms of your profession that machine logic might currently be missing, and, well, how you would test them.